Right, in this lecture we're going to look at adding figures into your landscapes, and the easiest way to bring your paintings to life is by putting in figures. So why figures? So let's have a look at a few good reasons to add figures. Firstly, they can add scale to the landscape. That cliff face or mountain scene looks all the more impressive with a tiny figure at the bottom, and helping to attract your eye to focal points in the painting, for instance. It also adds human interest and can help you tell a story. But do your figures look weird? A lot of people are worried about this. The figures don't look real. They look like they've been pasted on, or it's like a sticker over the landscape and something's wrong. A couple of examples of this. Number one, the giant invasion. Your figure is so out of proportion that it's as big as the tree, or it's towering above the doorways in a street scene, for instance. It's so easy to forget the proportions. Or you've drawn Mr. Big Head. That if you imagine meeting a person like this in real life, in the middle you'll have this gigantic head taking up all the shoulder space. Or you've got a weird perspectives running, like some sort of hall of mirrors, where people look too tall or too short, and the perspective is up and down and in the wrong place. This all happens if the figures are not put down accurately. So let's not worry about that. We can fix these problems right now with a few tips and tricks. And I'm going to show you how to add interesting new life to your paintings. Easy tips that you can use whether you're a beginner or intermediate skill, and transform your paintings overnight. So step one, we need to look at scale. And this is very simple. Make sure your figures are the appropriate size for the landscape. They must be part of the landscape, not dominating it through scale that is incorrect. So the way to do this is use comparison and relationships to help get the scale correct. In this example, the small figures have been drawn very loosely, but compared to the rocks and other natural features, they're in the correct proportion. Not perhaps absolutely perfect, but in the scheme of things, they're simply there to indicate scale, how large the surrounding natural features are. If they were as big as those boulders, you'd get a completely wrong impression about the scene, and it would not look correct. Right, another common problem is getting the head right. So we want to avoid making the head too big, and it's very easy to do when you just make a quick jab with the paintbrush where the head should be, and too much paint is on there, but it looks more or less right. In fact, the figure in the landscape usually has a much smaller head than you realize, and this is due to all sorts of aerial perspective and issues of scale and proportion as well. Another thing is the facial features on the head. Very seldom are you going to put in any facial features unless the person is right up close to you, in which case it's more like a portrait. So keep the face blank, use flat plane of paint. Don't put in eyes, nose and mouth or ears. Don't be tempted to do any of those things. And just a small dab for the head. Make sure it joins up with the body and is not floating above the shoulders either. Okay, the other thing to look out for is position, right? Say for instance you are doing a street scene and it's at normal head height. You've got to try and keep all the heads of the people at the same level. I'm talking here about adults, of course. We're not worried about distinguishing between adults and children. It's just general people on the street. And if they're at eye level with you, all the heads are going to be at the same level, but not the feet. The feet is where you indicate distance. So for instance, here in this little beach scene, your figures are receding into the distance, but the head heights are pretty much at the same level, but the feet and legs are different to indicate distance. Okay, so that keeping the heads parallel is important. Alright, staying with legs and feet, you can use some distortion in the length of the legs, however, and this can help to indicate movement and other dynamic things going on with the scene. Right, details of the feet, etc., don't even worry about that. Make the leg slightly longer, one leg slightly longer than the other if the person's walking or running, as you saw in the previous picture. And here we can see the person in the middle there, one leg shorter than the other. That indicates he's taken a step forward with his left leg, right leg's been raised behind. And you can do similar sort of things with the arms as they swing at the side. But notice no details of the feet. It's all vaporous and it seems to disappear, which helps to make the figure part of the landscape, not a sticker put on top of the painting. Okay, so details very minimal. It's all about the gesture that we're interested in. Okay, and an overall harmony as well. The figures must be part of the landscape. It mustn't be a jarring feature. So what does the figure add to the whole idea? We don't want to simply throw in figures for the sake of it and try and paint them wet into wet as well. Keep an eye on those edges. Make sure the edges are not hard, because then it looks like a sticker has been put over the painting. So these are just examples where figures are very loosely painted and they form a part and a whole with the painting, and contribute to the scene rather than looking too artificial. Okay, now we're going to look at a demonstration where I'm going to show you some of the details that I've spoken to you about. And remember, you can see more at malcolmdeweyfineart.com